You ready to bleep a lot of that?
Yeah, a lot of it, please. Yeah. Hey, everybody who's tuning in. We're trying something new for the next few weeks, starting this Friday. We are going to be talking about how we are building jam, for lack of a better phrase, how the sausage is made. All of those things is going to be shared in this podcast. So excited to have you all here today.
What's it like building jam this week?
I think it's been so awesome, right? Because we're building jam in person, and we do that like once a quarter. We get together for like a week. It is so different, I think, like when we are working in Zoom and stuff, and we're building jam remotely, which is like we're super productive and we're shipping and we're executing. But then when we get together, like in person, it's sort of like a different type of productivity because we're like making decisions, having like these like amazing discussions that then help us execute so much better going forward. And I feel like that happens every time we see each other. And so what's happening at Jam this week, I think we've been making some awesome decisions. We've been seeing I've gotten to see, for example, one of our product manager, Maya, we do like demos every day instead of like stand-up, right? But when we do demos in person, it's like a little bit more magical. And so doing the demos in person yesterday, and Maya's demo was just like, I had this like aha moment of just like how difficult and complex it is, this new thing that we're launching. I don't know if we're bleeping, like whatever. But it's like extremely complex, and I saw like all of this logic behind it, and I got to see like it's so cool to see how much effort, because all of us really try, right, to make it as simple as possible for our users. It's so cool to see like everybody doing that, and it's so impressive. And also like I had like a million existential crises because it's like really hard to understand. But like, so that's the kind of thing that is so hard that it's so much better to have somebody like face to face kind of like walk you through it like as many times as necessary. And so I think, yeah, that's sort of what's going on at Jam.
I think like oftentimes we know the different areas of everyone's areas of responsibility, and we understand, we sort of have a picture of what people's day looks like, but it becomes very real when you're like literally looking over their shoulder and seeing their screen. And like for me, I think like Mark, he does most of our customer support, and to see him like have these tickets come up and then immediately like asking everyone on the team like how do I fix this and get back to this question as quick as possible, like that for me like is something that was made really concrete by being here, like seeing what like all the Slack messages that he's sending every single day when there's a question that comes up, and that sort of attention to detail, that care, like that was really sort of inspiring and fun for me to see this week.
I have a similar experience as Ian, which is you can like to actually see visibly what someone's day looks like it's like very enlightening. And so Maya, the one product manager at Jam, it's been funny to see every project needs her, you know? So basically she doesn't open her laptop. Just people come to her and then they're like waiting for her responses. And like one of the bedrooms of the Airbnb where we're staying in has just become her office. So it's like, oh, let's go meet in Maya's office, because she's always there with like whatever engineer like needs something. And that's what it is.
That's hilarious.
I wonder if you guys like as founders, like do you notice a difference with like the feedback that you get from the team, or like how, or what you learn from us, like when you ask us stuff, like when is it different than like when we have a one-on-one via Zoom, or is it like pretty much like the same? Like it's not that different. We're still the same people.
I'm curious your experience. Like, what do you think?
Me?
Yeah, I mean, like we had a one-on-one yesterday, right? Like, what was it like? I'm curious.
Yeah. I think at first, like it's a little bit easier to get like things across. Like it's not like we suddenly become different people, but it's just like a little bit, I don't know why there's like a vibe. It's like a little bit more casual. I can sort of like talk more. Like it's not so constrained into like okay, we have like 20 minutes for the Zoom meeting and this is it. And this is what, it's more like, it's like ongoing, like you're there and I can just tell you whenever. So I guess it feels more natural.
What about you, Ian?
Yeah, I think when bringing up difficult feedback or topics where there isn't clarity, it's being in person or having the format where it feels just more natural to get at the root of what the truth is about the situation. And so if there is something that feels awkward to say, and like particularly like maybe there's a part of your job that you feel uncomfortable with, or you're like, oh, this feels sort of awkward to me, and like we're talking about why something's not going well. Like this would be an example where being together in person, there's like the pauses sort of lead to a so what moment, or lead to a greater better conversation and better understanding of what the true dynamics are. And so I felt like being here, we had a few of these moments like happen more spontaneously, where we're talking about something and then we sort of ask like, oh, is this really the right way to think about this problem, or do we need to like take a step back? And like also just when you ask a question, then there's maybe an initial response, and then it leaves this pause for afterwards, like, oh, and that's often sometimes where the best or the most sort of insightful piece would come up.
I had the same. It's so funny, Ian. I was going to say exactly the same thing, maybe a different flavor of it, which is that I feel more comfortable discussing like uncomfortable topics and being like, and more like confrontational topics, because you trust that you see the other person and you can sense how they are perceiving it, versus on Zoom, you don't know how they're taking it, and you don't want like, okay, here's a really trite example. Ian's been doing an amazing job posting every day on TikTok. The TikTok audience skews really young, and most people who use Jam are in their career somewhere. So they skew older than the TikTok audience. And so on Zoom, if we were to say like, should we still be posting every day on TikTok? Like, is that worth your time? Like, you might freeze up and I might not hear it. Like, I might not see the fact that I've just created this like huge tension for you, because you don't know if I'm like criticizing, like, right? And so, but in person, we were just like, so what do we think about TikTok? And and like, it's just like, I felt very comfortable in that conversation because I could see how you were taking things, and like I had confidence that like we had not completely ruined your day or something. You know, I don't know, like maybe trite example, but like that's what came up. I feel like if we're going to do this podcast right, and we're actually going to talk about what it's actually like building Jam, we talked about our favorite things that happened this week, or like most interesting things that happened this week. But what are the challenges right now of actually building a startup in this moment?
Well, there's like a lot of challenges, right? That comes with like building a startup. I can like speak personally about like my challenges. Sometimes I struggle a lot with like, you know, if it feels like there's like so many things, right? And you don't always know which one you should focus on. Like sometimes you have to pick, sometimes you have to make decisions. And at this stage that we're in, sometimes it's hard because we're doing so many things and like they seem to be working, right? Like it's going well, luckily, but then when it's like time to say, okay, I have 10 possible things I could do, which are the 3 that are going to be the best, most impactful? It's like sometimes really hard. You don't always know. So I think that's one of the challenges.
For me, I think one challenge that really we've thought about differently, or sort of come to a different challenge or understanding of this week, is really like marketing, routine marketing check-ins. And for us to understand how to do retros in a way that feel like just really contributive and good. I think the challenge there is that we felt certain pressure around having all the data, like having proper analysis of all the data that could affect like our potential actions that we want to take for the next weeks. And in that format, in these meetings, it felt less open, less energetic, less constructive, and more so like here we're looking at some numbers, here's some things we might do, and and now what? And so I think one thing that and that's been a challenge, finding the right format for us to do this, especially at our stage when we have so much going on, and it feels like we don't want to spend all day like in whatever marketing analytics dashboard looking at a particular channel. It doesn't feel like a substantive insight for us at our stage. And so to think about what these solutions might look like, we had a great meeting this week in person where it sort of started off by us talking about things that were inspiring us and thinking about like things that we saw this week, this month, that of the companies we admire and what they've done. And this felt like a constructive way that we might go about these meetings in the future, like starting off from a place of inspiration and letting that lead into what we're changing, as well as sort of thinking about the metrics, right? We're not going to ignore those, but really using inspiration as a guide rather than having meeting prep and having it feel super objective. And
That was one of the best meetings that we've ever had.
I agree. It's so funny how every startup is totally the same. I mean, basically, what have we said is the challenges are this week? knowing what to prioritize, being overwhelmed by the amount of things that are to do, and how much to trust data versus your gut at our stage of company. Another challenge from this week. So as we talked about earlier, when we are building net new products within Jam, rather than just go straight to launch, we follow sort of process. So first we use the product, and then when it's good enough for us, it goes to beta testers. And then when beta testers are every single time, not only is their reaction, oh, wow, but also they're using it every week and we see that retention is really good, then we go and launch it. And so we launched 2 betas last week. One is going great. Like, we used the product before, the beta testers are loving it, they're using it. The first reaction is, oh, wow, as Urfa said, and that feels so good. But the other one is not. And like, that's scary to me, and it sucks. And the thing that we're onboarding beta testers and they're like, oh, this is cool, but then they don't go use it. And so we know our quality isn't good enough. We have to keep iterating. And the thing that's hard for me this week is sort of breaking the news to the team. We're like, yeah, we're all grown-ups. We get it. And we get that we need to iterate. But I know how much work and like heart and soul and iteration has already gone into this product. And to say like, it's not yet good enough for us to add new beta testers, we need to do a whole new round of iteration, or it's not yet good enough to launch, feels bad. And I've been like delivering this message, and I like, honestly, like, it feel like that has been a challenge for me this week, is that feels sucky. Urfa, what about you?
I was just going to ask, am I expected to talk about a challenge as well? Well, I have my own challenges that you're all aware of, but I'm not gonna talk about that. Going back to something both like Ian, Ivana, like Danny, you talked about this too, like deciding between your gut and like data. It's so funny, like whenever you like interview people from like larger companies or like talk to like product managers from like Google or Facebook, they're like, oh yeah, you A/B test this, blah, 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 blah. We don't have that luxury. Like, very few companies have that luxury. Like, you have very little data when you're doing a small startup, and you have to lean so much on your gut. You still use data, but you have to make gut decisions and iterate based on that. Like Danny and I were just talking about, and we'll probably have to bleep some of this part out, but the product, when onboarding is going really well, we're thinking about, okay, how to launch it and how to monetize it. And but Danny and I, we both come from Cloudflare, where Cloudflare is like famously known for giving a lot of the stuff away for free and charging very little for things. So like our immediate, gut tells us, we're going to just give this away for free and like charge a little bit about all these, because we would just want to make our customers happy and solve their problems. It's really exciting to like share this with a lot of customers, a lot of users. And at the same time, we're a business. We have to, build and like sustain on our own. So it is important to monetize as well. So coming up with, okay, what part should be free, what part we should charge for, how much we should charge for, there's like tons of like pricing frameworks, pricing exercises that you can do. But at the end of the day, it really depends on like what the market is like and how willing these people are to like pay for your service. So you have to start with something and you have to experiment and iterate. And we're about to do that. But you can't just come up with any number. So you have to, again, like look at some of the data, like trust your gut a little bit on it, look what's out there and come up with a number that makes sense and then iterate on it. So that's what we've been like talking through, working on. And it's pretty challenging because like you just don't know. And I think personally for me, the challenging part is not knowing what's actually going to happen and can't wait to like ship it and see the reaction. So I'm just very impatient about that. So I think that's been keeping me up, and that's what I'm thinking about a lot.
Well, thanks everyone who's tuned in.
I want to share one more learning with everybody.
Please.
Okay, it's a very important learning that we learned in Colombia, bonus learning. And it's about how to boil eggs in Colombia.
Oh my God, great.
Oh, is it because it's like the elevation is really high?
Yes. So I've been making eggs for everyone, and everyone's deeply disappointed because they're disgusting. They're super undercooked. It's because the elevation is higher. So you need to boil them longer. Because
so they're just poached.
They're like poached eggs pretending to be hard boiled. But now we know. Boil them for longer.
And that's our teammate from Denver, unsurprisingly, was the person who was like, oh yeah.
That's hilarious. Well, thank you so much for joining today. to y'all and for listeners. And because this is the first episode for this has been really cathartic and it's been amazing. And founders out there who are building their own startups, builders out there who's building their own things, hopefully this was really helpful because, when we were building company, I wish this existed. Can't wait to share more lessons, more learnings, and let us know what y'all think. And
We're going
okay.
all jam.